At this stage, it's easy to run into situations where you have no idea how to handle what your opponent is doing, and that could be frustrating and make the game not too much fun to play when you get stuck in silver. And by far, it's funny that silver rank is like the biggest demon for most people because they can't get out of it. They're stuck. Oftentimes, the things holding back diamond rank players isn't necessarily their skills, but just putting in the time and how to train properly to get better. As John was just talking about here, kind of training offline, training with the right people.
Decision making,
yes,
stuff like that. Yeah,
very
it's like you can
stuff.
do the moves, but you don't know when to like jump forward versus not, and you see a lot of bad habits.
They might play really solid for a good portion of the matchup, but as the pressure kind of starts to mount, you can imagine that they might fall apart as the set basically stretches on. It's kind of hard for them to keep their composure and kind of keep it all together, and that's really kind of the big difference between gold and platinum players.
I'm definitely a gold player sometimes, though, that's for
So
sure.
am I. All right, John, I want to talk about now a tier list for Street Fighter V's online rank system, and accordingly, like if you are this rank, you can expect to do this well in tournament and kind of in general, right? And no one's ever done this before, as far as I know. It's kind of a new kind of spin on it, a tier list for how big are your league points? How big is that LP?
So if let me just make sure I got this right. This is if you are XYZ rank online, then you will likely do this well in tournament.
Exactly. And it's it's a pretty general thing. And both you and I are competent players here. We've placed in tournament before. We've done our fair share of work over the years, and I kind of want to break it down that way. But before I do that, I have to ask all of our listeners if they don't mind leaving a like on the channel, because
That's not how we say it anymore.
No.
We say psycho crush the like button.
Psycho crush the like button, because you're not going to want to do it after I piss you off with my tier list.
Yeah,
so please do it now.
And promise you won't take it back.
But starting first up here with the Warlord rank, that's 300,000 league points. Most players who fall into this category are capable of winning a major tournament without any issue at all. You've got to be a very gifted online player who grinds a ton to get this rank, and it is damn hard to get here. You've got to be amazing. And sure, if Item or Punk decides to enter a tournament where you're a Warlord, maybe you're not exactly going to beat them. You might end up winning, but you are also in the top 200-ish of players that are playing online right now. That is really hard to do. Just to throw out some notables here, I mentioned Item and Punk. They are both Warlord ranks. Tokido, Nemo, NL, Problem X, Phenom, Smug, and Infectious. Those are all the players you will see if you are Warlord rank. Damn hard to do. And more than likely, if you're a Warlord rank, not every Warlord's going to win, the tournaments and stuff they enter, depends on who is there. But the vast majority of Warlord rank players are capable of winning a major, depending on who shows up.
It's interesting though. The guy that has been atop the Street Fighter V online leaderboard since, like, as far as I know, like day one or two, Trashbox. I've seen him participate in some big Japanese tournaments. Like probably Evo Japan and stuff like that, or CPTs. I've never seen him win, and he's. I don't know if you looked up his points for this thing, but he is like. Not like 6 heads and shoulders above the next place down. Like he's got like all he does is play and usually win Street Fighter Online. So I don't know how he does that, but also I've never seen him win a tournament.
Yeah, he's definitely gotten high up in tournaments before. I believe he's gotten like 5th and 4th place in a few of the majors and stuff. He's gotten far up there. It might even been a little further than that. But winning, no. But winning is hard to do when you've got the top end players that are entering the tournament. It just kind of depends. So. But if he entered the right tournament, he'd definitely win it. It just depends on kind of like who shows up, that weekend, right? So moving on, next we have Ultimate Grandmaster, and this is where you're going to find the vast majority of major tournament winners. Actually, not everyone wants to grind a Warlord because to make it to that rank, not only do you have to be damn good, you have to grind like crazy. It is hard to get to Warlord. It's hard enough to get to Ultimate Grandmaster. But once again, not every player in there is capable of winning a major Street Fighter V tournament. But you're going to find the largest portion of major tournament winners here. Those notables include Daigo, Nephew, Big Bird, Cien, Bonchan, John Takeuchi, Gachikun, Moke, Itazan, Hot Dog 29, Luffy, Mr. Crimson, and Mago. They make up about the top 1,000 players online. It's not easy to get to Ultimate Grandmaster. You got to be damn good to get there.
What do you have to? What's the requirement?
The requirement for Ultimate Grandmaster is 100,000 league points.
Jeez.
Yeah. Not easy.
I'm at like 35 or something like that, 36. My old PS4 account, I was at like 60 something. Imagining getting to 100 and what that's gonna take, it's just like, dude, that's some legit stuff. I would argue though that you might. I mean, you said that you're more likely to see an Ultimate Grandmaster than you are a Warlord win a tournament, simply because there are probably more of them,
Yeah.
and it's kind of comparable. But maybe the Warlords spend too much time online, and that's the difference maker between, getting those little online gimmicks versus what works in the real world, and maybe they're a little too devoted to online. And actually, Warlord is going too far. It's going to the
no. Idom and Punk might have something to say about that. Probably the two best players on the planet right now. You could definitely make a case for some others, but they're both Warlords, or at least they've gotten their accounts to Warlords. So it's not an absolute rule, but I do agree with you that grinding online too much, you eventually, if you're going to want to win an offline tournament, you got to start training heavily offline. It's going to benefit you a lot. But in this day and age, especially on PC, especially with fiber connections, online connections could be a lot like offline. And in some cases, the pros are actually saying that like playing PS4 offline, playing PC online is better than PS4 offline. So and it is actually true in a lot of cases. So, but you're not wrong. I was just giving the other side of the coin there. But moving on, we've got Grandmaster, which is where you and I are at. You have to add 35,000 league points or more, and you are able to consistently place in tournament if you've attained this rank. More than likely, you're definitely.
You can also get your ass kicked in tournament as a Grandmaster. I know that.
Oh yeah.
Also,
yeah, we both know that quite well. Yes, usually getting our butts kicked. The last couple times I've lost a tournament, it's been to Ultimate Grandmasters. So there we go. Right. So but you're definitely going to find some major tournament winners in this rank as well. But generally, if you've hit the spot and kept your skills up, you can expect to place in events that you attend. That typically means you're in the results on event hubs. When I say you're placing in an event, right? We look at the tournament attendance and then kind of like do the results based on that. And the Grandmaster spot represents the top 4,000 players online. Yeah. All right.
So I think Momochi's there too, and Momochi's as good as any of them on the right day. But he's an example of a player that I think he obviously plays ranked quite a bit, because you'll see a lot of Momochi footage pop up in those like those compilation videos. But he doesn't seem to be one that's like grinding to get past Grandmaster. I think he just uses ranked as more of a tool or something like that. Because a player like him, you'd assume, just matter of factly, would get past that rank, and as far as I know, he hasn't yet. But I mean, he's also one of the picks. You're like, oh, is he at the tournament? You can't write him off.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, it's a kind of a funny contrast between the point totals, where it's not an absolute rule but a general one where
Sure.
There's always some exceptions and stuff in there, but good point with Momochi. So next up we've got Master Rank, 30,000 league points. This is where things start to take a fairly decent step down, and it's rare to find tournament winners in this rank. It's only 5,000 more league points to hit Grandmaster. That's not overly hard to do if you're that good at the game, and most people don't stay in this rank for very long if they have the skills to progress. You'll see a few players in here who have won events, but it's very few and far between. Usually these are where these are kind of like some players in the tournament results, but the lower end of the tournament results, you'll see them at Master Rank. And this ends up being the 6,500 range for players. So.
With Master Rank, there's a player that I run into, and it's a toss-up as to whether he'll be a Master or an Ultra Diamond. But and I think we've all been there, where you get to a new rank, but then that's kind of where you've leveled off, and so you sort of bounce back and forth between over and under the line, and so in some ways, maybe to be even more specific, it's like if you're bouncing back and forth between Master and Ultra Diamond or Master and Grandmaster, that's also kind of like significant categorizations of where you might be online.
It's all there. Like, you really have to kind of solidify yourself, because points are easy come and easy go in this game, especially when you get up here, because I can go 2-1 against a diamond ranked player and I still lose points. I'm still losing about 70-75 points at where I'm at right now. So it's like
it's a thing. It's a thing, especially when you pass those benchmarks and you're like, it's almost like you can breathe easy, but you really can't, because then like you've probably passed it by 30 points, which is, if you lose once, you're going back down, right? It's like this sigh of relief. It's like, what's your relief for? You're on it. You're still. Oh man, if anybody else is just like you hear that and you're like, oh, me too. Please let us know like what rank you got stuck at and your best story of triumph followed by immediate wind out of your sails, demoralizing loss.
We've all been there. And then we keep grinding on this damn game. And that brings us to the diamond ranks. 14,000
Yeah, it
points.
does.
The best
Grind long enough. No matter what rank you are, you'll end up as a diamond.
The vast majority of tournament results here, and we're doing, super and ultra all wrapped up in one because here we are. But the vast majority of tournament results outside of top 8 are typically populated by players in the diamond ranks. With this list, I'm not separating out, like I mentioned that before, but it's rare to find people who win tournaments in this vicinity are placed in the latter portion of events. But these players are all very solid and can definitely upset the pros when they're underestimated. Oftentimes, the things holding back diamond rank players isn't necessarily their skills, but just putting in the time and how to train properly to get better, as John was just talking about here, kind of training offline, training with the right people,
decision making,
yes,
stuff like that. It's like you can do the moves, but you don't know when to like jump forward versus not. And you see a lot of bad habits. Even like I'll run into some diamond players and they'll be doing things where I'm like, how are you this far? How this far up, because this strategy that you're using, like I've talked about Karen players that just use her like leaping overhead thing all the time or slide, and you'll see them get to like diamond and such, and it's like that's enough to get you there, but you're going to hit a hard plateau with stuff like that. Or if you don't have anti-airs, it's like you can get to diamond without anti-airs in some respects, but you're not going to get much farther.
Yep. Yeah, and to be fair here, it's hard to put in the amount of time that you need, like grinding to be able to win a tournament. And that's not for everyone anyway. A lot of people, never pick up a guitar trying to be, Joe Satriani or anything like that, right? Like they're just picking it up to have fun and kind of, enjoy the game. And that's what I see with a lot of diamond players, that they grind a bit, but they're not trying to be the best of the best. But they are all around very solid. And again, you underestimate a diamond player, you're going to get your butt handed to you. It's a very consistent kind of thing there. So they're good.
Diamond players, for the guitar metaphor, it's like they've really got smoke on the water down. Like they haven't necessarily branched out to whatever the next thing they learn, but everyone learns smoke on the water first, and they've got that down.
Boom. So the diamond players make up the top 42,000 players online, and that brings us to platinum. And through the platinum ranks here, 75,000 league points or above. The main thing I've noticed that's stopping players from getting out of the platinum ranks is actually just one or two major flaws that they haven't figured out yet. I've been surprised when I've made my way back through the ranks, like when I switched over to PC, like how skilled the platinum players were. I'm like, I kind of expected it to be a walk in the park. I'm like, hey, I got this. But the main thing I actually consistently saw that were holding these players back is they know their combos and setups well, but how to play defense and not get caught in bad situations wasn't something they'd fully wrap their heads around just yet. It seems like you agree with that, like from when you were going back there.
Okay, so I'm Grandmaster right now. The note that I continually give myself is slow the hell down and let them come to you more. Whiff punish them more, and usually at the beginning of my sets, or like when I get online to play, I'll be doing a lot more forward jumps, a lot more trying to force things. When you take that onus off yourself and you just play a lot more reactionary to them until your openings are there, and then you take advantage of them, then you go in, that will get you up probably a few levels from where you're at. But that's a note I give to everybody and myself, because I have to reteach myself that all the time, because hey, you want to get in there and you want to do some punches, I get it, but slow it down.
Yeah, this is a game where if you are in the wrong spots on screen, you're dead. And especially against players who have more experience and skill than you do, you're just a dead man walking, or a dead person walking, I should say. But you might see a few platinum players in the results of tournaments. That does happen, but they are few and far between compared to the other ranks. In this, the platinum ranks represent the top 96,000 players online, so not too bad. And that brings us to the gold ranks. 4,000 league points. Gold players are similar to platinum players, where they have a good amount of their core combos and mix-ups down, but they're more prone to dropping like a game-winning or game-deciding situation. They might play really solid for a good portion of the matchup, but as the pressure kind of starts to mount, you can imagine that they might fall apart as the set basically stretches on. It's kind of hard for them to keep their composure and kind of keep it all together, and that's really kind of the big difference between gold and platinum players.
I'm definitely a gold player sometimes, then that's for
So
sure.
am I. But yeah, these players usually have gold ranked have a handful of flaws. Where the platinum players might have one or two kind of major standout flaws that you and I can kind of pick up on and exploit. Gold players have more like around 5 major flaws that are keeping them basically in gold. And it's certainly possible to overcome 2 or 3 of those and get yourself into platinum, even if you've been stuck in the lower ranks for a while. And this is a good time to refer to like the 5 tips videos and other stuff that we've done, where it's like, hey, I'm stuck in my rank. How do I get out of it? Go back to check out those videos, and we'll talk about it here or more. But it's really kind of understanding the core meta of what makes you good in Street Fighter V and making sure that you exploit that and you don't put yourself in bad situations once again. And this spot for gold represents the top 190,000 players. You see, we're getting to a big part of the player base there. Almost 200,000 players there from gold on up. So yeah.
I remember in Street Fighter 4 days, back in the Street Fighter 4 days, where everything was uphill both ways in the snow and no shoes and all that stuff. But I remember back then, you used to be able to predict, not necessarily through online points, but you could probably make a pretty distinct kind of organizer for this, like players that would get out of pools, for instance, in tournament. And I don't know if we really ever talked about it in terms of like who would get top 8, because again, the online was different back then, so it was even more of a divide between what it's like to play offline and online and such. But there was like a lot of predictions that you would make from all that kind of stuff. And I remember we would talk about, like, you could almost always say like, oh, these two are the most likely to get out of pools and be right much more often. Street Fighter 5, that's evened out in the more modern times because the game's gotten to a better place, but it's been much harder to predict even who's gonna get out of pools at a lot of tournaments with this game. Did you already kind of mention that with the ranks, or did I miss it? Like,
You're
is
good,
there a
man.
rank where you're like, if you're this rank, you're likely to get out of pools, or is that even
It's
too hard to
pretty
predict
much
at this point?
Grandmaster. Like Grandmaster, you're
Yeah,
probably going to get out of pools, or are you going to have a chance? But it depends on the tournament. Are you entering the Capcom LCQ, which is probably the hardest tournament of the year?
just
That is
killers.com right there.
that is almost impossible to get out of. Now, if you actually make Capcom Cup, yeah, that's way harder, right? But I mean, in terms of an open tournament, though, that the LCQ is almost impossible to make it through. You and I have both won a handful of matchups when we've played in the LCQ, and we were very proud of that. That's hard to do, but it's so.
Mhm.
But if we would have maybe entered the last CEO, maybe you and I are making it out of pools, kind of thing. It's a possibility if we had a good week.
Mhm.
That's kind of the general barometer at this day and age of how I see it. So next up, we have the silver ranks. In silver rank players, they're often missing some of the core setups and combos for their characters that they either don't know or can't execute consistently. Offense is the dominant way to play Street Fighter V, and knowing when and where to apply pressure or ease off is a gigantic, huge part of this game. And if you don't fundamentally understand that, it's actually really hard to get out of the silver rank. At this stage, it's easy to run into situations where you have no idea how to handle what your opponent is doing, and that could be frustrating and make the game not too much fun to play when you get stuck in silver. And by far, it's funny that silver rank is like the biggest demon for most people because they can't get out of it. They're stuck, and it's like they're like, I've been silver rank for like 2 or 3 years, and it's like it's I get it. Like, some people, the game just never clicks for them, and this is where they get hit, and most people quit here. It's just, this is a tough one, and this spot is very representative here as we lead up to this number. 374,000 players are silver rank are up. Like, that is a huge portion of the player base here, and there it is.
If you are stuck in silver, there's a lot, obviously, as you just laid out, that you can learn. But I'll tell you this, if you simplify the game down to kind of like, I'm either doing this or this, and otherwise just sort of trying to get back to where I'm either doing this or this. Like, so I'm either anti-airing with uppercuts, or I'm like throwing a fireball, and like those are kind of the only things that I'm worried about doing. The game gets super overwhelming when you're thinking about all the possibilities of what your character and the other character can do. If you simplify it and you just go like, my character can play through these two gears, and they thrive off of each other, right? Because if they're on the ground, they have to worry about the fireball. If they're jumping, they have to worry about the DP. And you get rid of all that other stuff, I think you'll get through silver. I think if you just simplify it to the two things that, like, whatever your character is, figure it out. You got to tailor make it for your own character. But whatever your character's two like kind of gears are that thrive off of each other, just simplify it to those, and I think you can get out of silver.
It's usually V trigger. It's usually V
Well,
trigger. Yeah, one of those two things John is talking about simplifying down is make sure you know your V trigger stuff really well. That's the unfortunate part about Street Fighter V. It's way too based around V triggers, and then controlling offensive momentum and kind of just knowing when to put Okazemi pressure and stuff on people. But easier said than done for a lot of people. Just hard to wrap your brains around. But very good advice there from John if you're stuck in silver. Moving on, we've got the bronze ranks. If you play Street Fighter V fairly casually, you're probably in this rank. You probably just play the game to kind of have fun periodically and don't take things too seriously, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know a few setups and tricks, and that's enough for you. You could probably get a higher rank if you tried, but you just kind of enjoy the game on a different level, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. And this spot is where you see the top 1 million players. I don't think Street Fighter V has an active player base of 1 million people playing it. It's a lot of the bronze people are just people who played the game for a little while and then moved on to something else because it wasn't for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the last rank we've got is rookie, and that is less than 500 league points, just 500. You're probably not playing the game too much if you never made it out of this rank, because you pretty much just have to play about 20 or 30 matches to get to that point. And if you're in here, you're probably waiting for Street Fighter 6. And that's all good, because we'll see you in that game, and that makes top 2 million players in the rookie rank, and that is everything. So,
well, I've learned a lot.